Aloha Exiles. Today I'm going to give you an in-depth look at my League start plans for Delirium League. How I'm going to build my character straight from the get-go. The video will progress kind of as the following. First, I'm going to cover the passive tree progression along with the gear progression and then follow up with the gems and links. Now, I'm going with the Stormbrand character and I decided to go with Hierophant. So that way I could build into the new Archmage support and Arcane Cloak and the whole mana thing they're trying to set up for us. Kind of want to try my hand at building into it and make a character out of it. Now to start off with, you'll notice initially I only have 69 passives allocated. That's because 69 is a great number, and because I'm planning on using about 20 passives out here and 20 passives out here for the new Cluster Jewel notables. You'll see with the for brand stuff they have here, it is very, very strong notables, stuff we previously didn't really have the ability to get on the tree, not to this extent on this power level. So I'm planning on making use of it to grab a whole lot of damage, more or less, from my build with these. And there's some other notables I'll be looking out to get with mana, lightning damage, lightning pen. There's a lot of good stuff. So I'm hoping that I will be able to do that. If this isn't the case, I'll end up walking you through a skill tree where I don't use the cluster jewels. Say I don't end up being able to afford them or they're actually hard to obtain. But for now, we're just going to go over this assuming I get cluster jewels. The leveling process, basically you're going to go up through Retribution, over to Discipline and Training, next to Light and Divinity, then to Holy Dominion. Then you're going to travel up here to get some more life with Devotion. And then you're going to do some traveling here straight over to get the additional attaching of a brand. Now, the jewel sockets I have on the tree, the two passive jewel sockets, don't get these until you can buy a decent jewel. Otherwise, it's just kind of unless you have like at least a 3-stat jewel, 2 passives isn't really worth spending on a jewel. Next, we're going to come over, get Arcane Capacitor, some more life at Purity of Flesh, grab Arcane Potency, and we're going to come back through here. We're going to go over and grab these nice crit brand nodes. They look like they have a totem on them, but they also have brand stuff for them. So 20 crit multi, 20 crit multi, another 20 crit multi, 50 crit chance. A lot of good stuff here. And you could also get 100 crit chance if I just randomly arbitrarily decide to summon totems, just randomly for the extra 100 crit. I don't know, I might do that. Grab some more brand stuff over here, go through life and mana, ES, and mana stuff here. This is initially kind of a tree that's going to get you, I don't know, somewhere around Act, 7 or 8, maybe even 9. I'm not 100% sure on what passives you have at what point, but say you get to that point and you don't end up being able to get good cluster jewels to go straight into, then we're looking at the tree being a little bit different. These two passives can be up here. It doesn't really matter. I guess if you need the dex, then you'll go that way. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's still a similar concept, but you'll end up going over to the shadow area as well and coming up here for crit, life, mana, and lightning damage. So basically, say you come all the way around here, you get to this point. Also, I forgot to allocate mind over matter, but you're going to have that. Say you get to this point, you can't really afford to get good cluster jewels. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to come over, get life and mana, you're going to get crit spell chance, you're going to get lightning pen here. Well, that might be actually one of the last things you do before this stuff here. You might end up going over to the shadow nodes here with the brand nodes. Very strong stuff. So that's generally how you're going to progress your tree. Also, I need to go over the Ascendancy. Initially, we're going to, for our first passive point, we're going to Sign of Purpose. It's a really big damage notable for brands. Next up, we're going to get Divine Guidance for just that defense and damage from Transfiguration of Mind. After that, we'll get the Sanctuary of Thought for the area of effect and for the extra ES, a nice little defensive node. And when we get the Uber Lab trials, we'll end up getting this for the spell leech, the spell damage, and the area of effect. I might end up changing my mind and go for Conviction of Power or something, but for right now, I think Illuminate Devotion's the play. That's the gist of the passive tree I'm planning on, and hopefully I can end up finding some, the cluster jewels aren't necessarily hard to get or super expensive. Now let's go and look at our gear. So I'm going to pull this over to the screen. This hopefully will give you a good idea of more or less gear progression of cheap to more expensive options to start really rounding out your character. Initially, all these things kind of start out with IDing a rare. More or less when you're leveling, you're not going to have any chaos. You're straight out of the gate. You don't have any money. You're just going to be IDing stuff. or just grabbing 4 links and throwing like an essence at it or an alchemy orb at it, just hoping you get something decent. Say you start finding a couple chaos throughout the leveling experience, then you start looking for the items kind of in the next category of stuff. Rainbow strides are good boots with resistance, movement speed. You could look for Skullhead the gold. It's a helmet with life and resistances. You could look for gloves with general life mana resistances. For body armor, buying a cheap 5-link int base, that's going to be a couple chaos. Getting a Ziri's Foible, a Winter Heart, that's going to be, these are all kind of the cheaper options where it's like you have a couple chaos to spend initially when you're leveling, keeping PoE trade up, searching through. You can just snag one of these and throw it on your character for an instant improvement. And then basically as you start to get into maps, you start to get more currency, then you want to start looking at other upgrades. Now I'm going to emphasize the strongest ones. I'm thinking Khaleesi's Grace. These gloves are super good mana, ES, they're good hybrid gloves, and on top of that they have this mod that lets you get 2 flat crit if you spent 800 mana recently. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make use of that or not. I'm hoping we'll be able to spend 800 mana per every 2 seconds because the mod lasts for 2 seconds, the crit does. And with the Archmage support, if it actually makes us use that sort of amounts of mana and we still have enough mana regen to make Khaleesi's Grace work, this is going to be our endgame glove. If it doesn't work, it's just going to be a stepping stone to a well-rolled rare. The boots, it's really just going to be, you're just going to be looking for buying boots with good movement speed, good life, good mana, resistances. Eventually, when you got a lot of money on your hands or more money on your hand, you're going to look for the Ellie Pen boot enchant on a rare, and then you're going to basically have to self-craft for something with movement speed, resistances, life, mana. So that takes care of boots, gloves. Helmet, you get a little bit more money. I don't know how common a drop Brine Crown is. I think it's maybe a little less common, but maybe still common enough that you could buy it. That'd be a good upgrade from the Gold or Skullhead. After that, you want to start looking for something with a Stormbrand enchant. Something that has Stormbrand Pen if you can, or just Stormbrand damage. Basically, you want to get that sort of enchant, and then you want to craft it yourself. When you get more money than that, then you start looking at getting an Influence Exalt to get the minus lightning res mod, and then, craft on that. That's your helmet. Your body armor, it's going to be, you have a 5-link base, you want to upgrade from that, you want to buy a cheap 6-link base, that's an int base, so that way you can roll the sockets to be mostly blue sockets, because that's what our links are going to be. You'll use this for a while, just craft on it for life and resistances. Eventually, you'll get enough currency where you can start looking at something like an Impulse's Broken Heart, which is just a lot of fun to play with. You get a lot of cool explosions with it, along with some damage as well. And the other options would be maybe a Cloak of Defiance or high-end influenced item craft. These are all kind of more like you're moving on to your end game. This is one of the more expensive upgrades. For the amulet, after we have Ziri's Foible Winter Heart, we're just basically going to look at buying a good rare with crit multi, life, mana resist, mana regen. This is all good stuff. That's what we're going to be looking for in our amulet. After that, the rings. Cheap upgrades are going to be something like Malachi's Artifice, which is just going to be a straight huge damage upgrade, but then you lack resistances and life and mana and that stuff, but it's going to be a huge damage upgrade. Might be something niche to use, nice at the beginning, along with Hoop of All, that's another decent ring, or Dream Fragments, or just an okay rare. This is going to be your initial cheap upgrades. After that, you really are looking for a high-end ring with really good life, really good resistance, good mana regen, good mana. And finally, after that, if you've got tons of money laying around, Mark of the Shaper is going to be a really strong ring for the build, along with the off influence with the curse on hit type setup going. Something like that. Something to look forward to. Next up, wands. For the most part, I'm probably going to end up dual wielding wands. I might be doing a shield. Maybe a wand and a shield. But for this, pretty much initially, maybe grab a Life Sprig, Oxium type setup. Those two things are both good for Stormbrand. After that, you want to start looking for rare wands with mods like spell damage, crit chance for spells, global crit multi, level of all lightning or all spell gems, lightning damage. Those are the mods you want to look for on your wands. And if you end up deciding, or I end up deciding to go shield wand setup, I think you can get a good amount of life, good mana regen. You can get crit chance for spells. I think you can get spell damage as well, resistances. That's all stuff you want to look for on your gear, and that's kind of the gear progression. So I hope that gives you a good idea of, as you're leveling, there's going to be a progression where you upgrade your set of gear a few times as you get more currency. Next up is the gems and gem links. So pretty much all I'm going to go over is my main damage setup, my movement setup, my brand recall, and my cast when damage taken setup. So to begin with, I'll start with the movement skill. I think I'm going to try out Lightning Warp. They buffed it for this patch, and it was pretty fun on another character I tried where it was really fun to just throw down tons of Lightning Warps and just zoom across the screen. You want to link this to less duration and faster casting and swift affliction. The reason for this is you really want to get the Lightning Warp duration down as far as possible, so that way when you Lightning Warp, it takes as little time as possible to get across the screen. I'm trying to think. I have this right here. So say I throw on my Lightning Warp, make sure I'm not blind, which I might be. Oh, of course, this is a trigger socketed spell. Gosh dang. Okay, so the wand I have is a trigger socketed spell wand, and I don't really have good links anywhere else. Oh well, I'm not going to worry about it. But more or less what you're going to be doing is there's a delay between the cast and when you actually land over here when you cast Lightning Warp. With less duration and Swift Affliction, these both reduce the duration, and you want to get quality on this stuff, I believe, for less duration at least. It reduces the amount of time before you go from here to here. So this is all just making Lightning Warp a supreme movement skill. Next up with the damage setup, we have Stormbrand, of course. I put Cast When Stunned here as a place filter for the Archmage support. So they added these new supports, or this new support called Archmage support. I don't know, they haven't given us the numbers on this exactly, but I'm planning on this being actually a pretty strong support, and I'm going to build around it with using mana and gaining lightning damage based on that mana and increasing the cost of your spell. So if Archmage support isn't good, I won't end up using it, but I'm planning on it, along with something like Lightning Pen, Inspiration support, Control Destruction, Arcane Surge, and Energy Leech support. Obviously, you're going to start out with a 5-link. It's probably going to be something like this. And then I think Control Destruction will probably be like one of the last supports I use. Maybe Energy Shield support. I haven't really decided. I'll play around with when I build it, but these are good supports to use. Up next is our brand recall. So with the brand, this thing actually, you can recall things more often with quality and levels on the brand recall. So what you want to do is basically raise its quality and its levels with Empower support and Enhance support. If you can get these two things to level 3 and get 20 quality on it, it'll feel pretty good for recalling your stuff and just running through maps. Lastly up, I'm going to be using a Cast When Damage Taken, Wave of Conviction. This is just apply lightning exposure to reduce enemies' resistance by 25 to the storm brands. And then this Cast on Death support is just a placeholder for the Arcane Cloak, which I'm planning to use this as my guard skill. We'll see how good these new ability and new support actually are. Maybe they are worth it, maybe they aren't. I'm going to test them out and see. That's pretty much the gist of the character. I think this is going to be a really strong league start because the gear is going to be relatively cheap and it's going to have a decent amount of damage for low investment. Along with the way the clouds expand for Delirium, there's going to be a ton of mobs and you need to move through the map fast. I can be casting Storm Brands and just running, and the Storm Brands I can keep recalling and just running through the map. So I think this will be a great league start for Delirium. If you choose to try it out, I think it'll go pretty well for you. So that's pretty much the gist of it. You guys have a good one.